When it comes to investing, white households are more likely to own stocks than that of Black, Hispanic, and other minority groups. The reason behind this ranging from barriers to entry, systemic issues, and so much more. I spoke with Jeannie Sun, General Manager of Inclusive Investing at JP Morgan Wealth Management, to find out what exactly inclusive investing is all about. Take a look.
Why don't we just start first with the definition of inclusion, right? It basically equal access to opportunities and resources. And so what that means from an investment standpoint is for our diverse clients, we want to make sure that every step along the way, whether it's the experiences that they engage us with or the products or the services, that they feel that those things are maybe not made for them because we're not trying to put a pink bow on things, but that it was designed with them in mind. And at the end of the day, it's just about ease of access. If they can't fully engage with their investments, we want to understand why and do our best to remove that obstacle.
What are some of the needs and challenges that so many underrepresented investors face, Jeannie?
Well, look, I think first we need to recognize that historically underrepresented people, generally speaking, trust financial institutions less than others. And that's for the reasons that I just talked about, but also because of the lack of representation. The second thing is there are systemic issues that we have to address, not just the income gap, which there's a lot of talk about, but things like lower access to employer-sponsored retirement plans, things like the pink tax that affects women. In aggregate, these all add up to less money that those individuals have to invest, and it could mean longer time horizons for investments or a delay in getting started, which have long-term implications. And then third, I just want to highlight that it is the pandemic and the job losses have been really profound, and those have impacted women and women of color more than others. And that could have implications for long-term planning, things like retirement. Were you able to contribute to your retirement plans through the bulk of last year? Potentially, you might have had to draw from it to meet expenses. And so when I think about those three things, those are all things that we're working to tackle today.
Yeah, let's talk about that, about supporting women, Black and LatinX investors. How will that help close this racial wealth gap that we're seeing?
Wealth and the wealth gap, simply speaking, there's two assets that are really important and make the bulk of how people build wealth. It's your home and it's your investments. And so the numbers here are staggering, Hannah. What I want to highlight is only about a third of Black households owned stocks in 2019, according to the Fed. This compares with 60% or over 60% for white households. And we know that investments can play such a critical role in helping you be prepared for those long-term financial needs, things like retirement. So that's for you today, but it's also, I want to highlight the generational impact that this can have. You being better off can help your children start in a better place. And so when I think about for myself, my parents are retiring, and the better prepared they have been means less support my sisters and I have to provide them. But even something as simple as college savings, the more that you can pay for college, it leads to hopefully less of a debt burden for your children when they start their own adult lives. And so those are the ways that we're hoping to create some positive momentum in over the long term, closing these wealth gaps.
Is there any advice, Jeannie, that you can offer to individuals in these underrepresented communities looking to start investing?
So I think taking that first step is always the hardest. And so here I want to break it down a little bit. Something that's really helpful is putting some words around it. Why are you doing this in a way that's meaningful and important to you? So ultimately, what's your goal? Is it retirement? Is it saving for college for your child? Once you have that language around it, it's actually much easier to come up with a plan. So two, having that plan and developing it, there's a whole host of resources that are available. You can do internet searches, you can go to financial institutions' websites. There's a lot of educational materials to help everyone with this. But I think something that's really powerful is just talk to someone you trust who can give you good advice and can help you think through what's relevant for you to get started. And then the last thing is to stick to that plan. It's about consistency here and not about size. And here, what I think about is retirement planning. Many people's first investment experience is with their 401k plans when they start working for a company. And what is so amazing about this is that it really plays to that consistency. Every paycheck, a little bit comes out of it. And in isolation, that amount may not be a big amount, but then it adds up over time to something that's really meaningful for you. And this is why those plans can be so successful over the long run.
What are some ways organizations can deepen their commitments when it comes to racial equity?
Look, I think a lot of organizations, if not all at this point, have called for commitments and made commitments to employee diversity and inclusion. And I think that is wonderful. I don't want to downplay that at all. But here I want to highlight JP Morgan's $30 billion Path Forward commitment. This was our challenge to ourselves to think about what next and what more. And so when I talk about that $30 billion, I really want to emphasize this is $30 billion in business commitments and investments that we're making in our communities and with our clients to effectively address the barriers of systemic racism. And so when I think about where those inequities are in the financial system, it's housing and access to affordable housing, it's business ownership and funding for those businesses, and it's financial health. And so those are the things that we as a financial institution are doing. And so when I think about what other institutions can do, it's along the same lines. Think about what role does your business play in closing those gaps and effectively thinking about how to diversify your client base.
As our interview with Jeannie Sun, General Manager, Inclusive Investing, JP Morgan Wealth Management. Such an interesting interview. JP Morgan Chase is committed to providing the education and tools to advance financial equality for women everywhere. And investing is a fundamental part of that process. To learn more about investing offers, visit jpmorganwealthmanagement.com.